What's up, y'all? Hey, y'all, it's your girl, Candy J, coming to you with another episode of Candyology. Okay, listen. Raise your hand if you're new. Oh, shoot, I can't see y'all in the comments. Can you hashtag I'm new here? Hi. Okay, listen. If you don't know, and this is your first time or you're coming back, my name is Candy J. I am a certified clinical sexologist, a premarital counselor, marriage counselor, wedding officiant, marriage boot camp coach, mocha marriage facilitator, and 7 principles of making marriage work Gottman leader. Oh yeah, I'm tired. Okay, I know. Was that too much energy towards y'all already? Okay, I'm sorry. Listen! This month is March. Can you say hashtag March babies rock? Yes! Okay, my birthday is March 26th, and you can see that I am not alone. You are not alone. Okay, no, stop. Okay, Michael, we
love you.
Thank you for all the great music. Okay, listen. And the reason why it's so important for me to say that it's March, right? And my birthday is March 26th is because every podcast that you see in the month of March is going to have something that is near and dear to my heart. And you know, Colin G, he stole my face. He stole my heart. I mean, that's my baby boy. And if you don't know, again, like if this is your first time or if this is a refresher for you, my son has autism. And so, hence the reason why Lauren's here. Hey girl, how you doing?
Hello,
Tell the people who you are.
So I'm Loren Montgomery. I am a speech-language pathologist, and I've been Colin's speech pathologist since 2019. So like 5 going on 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's family, and I will fight about Lauren. I'm being so serious though. I'm joking, but I'm serious at the same time, guys. So listen, sit back, relax, because this is going to be a podcast that you definitely want to listen to. But we'll be right back. Oh, and we're back. We had a default a couple of minutes ago, and I didn't even know it would just bring me back in. So, you learn something new every day. Okay, again, we are talking about autism. So, first of all, what in the world is autism, Lauren? Because the people don't know, okay? We're going to pretend that they don't know.
Right. So autism, think of it as like on a spectrum. So a lot of times you hear people say autism spectrum disorder. Mm-hmm. So it's a deficiency in like social understanding, social boundaries. And a lot of times kids and even adults, but mostly they're diagnosed as kids when they're younger, they may have delays in their speech and language. And so that's where we first see that there's something going on. And so a lot of times you think of like the autistic person that maybe if they're verbal, they're probably a little bit blunt. They say whatever is on their mind. Yeah, very, very quirky. They make associations between things. Like I know Colin has a lot of random associations. I'm like, where did he get that from? I'm like, okay, that does look like a planet, I guess.
Right. Or like, no, my favorite one was when I think he was like maybe 2 or 3 or maybe 4. Uh-huh. He loves Paw Patrol. You know he loves Paw Patrol.
I have a story about him. Paw Patrol,
yes. Girl, help! We need Paw Patrol. So anytime he needed help, he would say Paw Patrol. We need Ryder. We need what's the other one? Chase or
So when I first met Colin, he wasn't saying the entire thing. He would just yell help. Mm-hmm. And help to him was anytime he was in trouble or if you took something away from him that he didn't need, or if you wanted him to stay on task and you took the puzzle piece away, he would scream help. And if you didn't know him, you would think something was going terribly wrong. And so like maybe 6 or so months later, after yelling help, he was like, help, Paw Patrol, when you need help, yell for help. And I was like, that's why he's doing that. He's in distress right now because you took something away from him. And yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. I just love all of the babies that I see that have autism.
I know we're not even on this yet, but I'm compelled to ask the question. Right. So like, what is the quirkiest thing that you've seen with the kid, any kid?
Honestly, I have a couple of kids that just give you like this death stare. Like they don't know social boundaries or awareness. And so sometimes I have to explain to them, like, this is Miss Loren's personal bubble. Like this is and I love them and I do love the cuddles. But as they get older, you have to make sure that they know social boundaries. And so I have kids that will get right in my face. Or if I say, Colin does this. If I say, look at me, Colin, he'll get right up to you and look at you like, okay, you're saying, look, he's so literal. And so that's one of like my favorite things about Colin. I'm like, okay, Colin, back up just a little bit, like a couple of feet, but I do want you to look at me, but not nose to nose.
No personal space. Yeah, because he's 9 and he's about here on me.
Right.
And he still sits in my lap.
Yeah,
like, dude, you heavy now. Jesus.
Yeah, he is. And so like when they're younger like that, and I usually do start off with the babies, the 2 and 3-year-olds. And you know, you're okay with that. And I'm still okay with it as I get older, but then you have to teach them those social boundaries because they may go and sit in a stranger's lap and not know that that's not okay. And so we have to teach them that. So at some point I have to be like, okay, you sit here, like physically move them off of me. But yeah, I mean, all of my kids that I see that have autism are all very different. It is truly a spectrum, for sure.
So, Loren, what made you get into
speech pathology? Yes. Oh my gosh. So a lot of people don't actually know this about me, but I was in speech myself from kindergarten into the 9th grade because I actually have a stutter. And so, stutter? Yeah.
You know, I associate everything with music.
And so, growing up, I thought I was actually going to be a pastry chef, and I wanted to have my own catering business.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and I attended one of the local schools, so we had a culinary arts program, and I was in that program, and I just did not like. So it was like a 3-hour class, and then when we would leave class, we would go to our last class of the day. And we had a full-blown restaurant in the school. And so I would go to my last class smelling like food. And I didn't like that. And I was like, this cannot be my life. And at that point in time, I was a senior and a junior in high school. So I wasn't in speech anymore because I self-elected to be out. Because I was always in like advanced classes, but I had a I had a stutter. And so I wasn't in speech anymore because it was like personal reasons. But honestly, one of the things was when I went to enroll myself into like freshman or sophomore year of high school, because we could do it on our own, the lady saw that I was in speech and she decreased my graduation plan to like less than recommended because she saw that I had an IEP. And she just assumed that if I had an IEP that I shouldn't have been in these pre-AP and these AP classes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like that was kind of revealing to me. And then freshman year, I like walk into class, the speech pathologist comes to pull me out. And I was always I loved going to speech. And it was usually one-on-one. But when she pulled me out, she pulled me with some like self-inclusion kids. And so they were like not on the same academic level as me. And I just felt like completely out of place. So my mom pulled me out of speech. I didn't have an IEP anymore. But she still kind of like, I guess, advocated for me with my teachers. And then when I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I just thought like, okay, my safe place was always speech. And then I went into college and honestly, I'm able to kind of mask my stutter now because I know the techniques that I've learned over the years. And I still have hiccups, but people don't always pick up on it. But when I was in college, when I would have to do reports in front of a 300 class lecture hall, like I was having anxiety, panic attacks. And then one day I just like talked to myself and I was like, how are you going to teach people how to communicate better? And you are having a whole mental breakdown before this presentation. And so honestly, like at least with stuttering, a lot of times it's like anxiety based too. And it may be neurogenic and it's developmental. And so for me, at least from the anxiety standpoint, I was able to manage that better. And then as I came to terms with my own like disability, then I felt like I was able to navigate my career path better. And so a lot of times if I'm doing like an eval on a kid where the mom is just distraught, like I'm really able to empathize with that mom, because I've been there. Like my parents did the same thing. I would be having panic attacks and crying before I had to read in front of the classroom, and no one understood it. And so I'm able to I really pride myself in building a rapport with the families that I work with, because I've been there. And so I know, like, from a personal standpoint, it's hard. And, you know, I don't have autism, but I do have another disability. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. But I love that. That's the reason for it. Did you run into other people that were like that?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. Like, I'm not going to say what schooling I went to, but, you know, especially like with me being a Black woman, and you go into these programs and they're predominantly white women. And, yeah, I had some advisors that, like, the tests are not easy. And honestly, I didn't know speech until all that it entailed when I first started my program. And so in undergrad, I remember I think I failed one test. You know, you have 200 tests while you're in college. I failed one. And she was like, "Oh, what did you get in this professor's class?" And I was like, "Oh, I got this on the test." She's like, "Oh, you may need to reconsider going to graduate school because you're not going to make it." And then I would like get on Reddit and stuff, and other people like me would hear and see the same thing. And so I was like, okay. And then when I ended up in grad school, like I actually ended up at HBCU, but I was still, I was a minority, because I mean, I had a small program and they only accept like 20 of us. And depending on the semester, I was a spring start. So it was 5 of us total. I was the only Black girl at HBCU.
Oh,
yeah. Wow. And then like for the fall starts, they would have like 20 to 25 people, and it would be like two Black girls. So we would all just stick together because it was just, yeah. So there was always
I'm floored right now.
Yeah. Every time I tell people that, it's really interesting. So
at HBCU though.
Yeah. Wow. So you always have people that just kind of say, or, "Oh, I have stories, Candy," because I was in Alabama. So
we got time.
Yeah. So I was in Alabama. So a lot of my clinical placements when I was in grad school were in either further north Alabama, or we would go up to Tennessee. And so I was in these very rural areas.
And you might want to tell the people what you mean by rural areas.
There's not us.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell the truth, shame the devil.
And I was in Alabama. So, I mean, I did work a retail job while I was in grad school, but when you go into these rural areas, like you get stopped by the cops. And I did have a classmate that was always carpooling with me, and she was white. And honestly, like one time we got pulled over, and I think that's what saved me. But it's just little things like that. But at the time we had a clinical placement in a skilled nursing facility. So we were working with the geriatrics. And you go in, and so like if you think about a nursing home, you have your nursing staff, you have the other therapists, you have like the charge nurse, all that, and then you have it's not coming to me right now, but like it starts with a C. But
CNAs?
Yeah. So you have the CNAs that are like kind of the aides to the patients that are there, and so I would come in, and they'd be like, "Shave me." And I would say, "That's not what I'm here for. We're here for speech. We're gonna talk about your diet and your swallowing and all that." And then they'd be like, I got some crazy things told to me. Like I had a guy tell me, I walked in and he had dementia, so we're gonna cut him some slack. But the day before, he told me he was born and raised in Idaho. So we were working on like cognitive sort of therapy, trying to help like work on recall and stuff. And so he had told me he was raised like on a potato farm. So I go in the next day and I said, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so, how was it when you were a kid working on a potato farm?" He just gave me this evil look. And he was like, "How do you know that?" And I said, "Well, yesterday we talked about it, remember?" And of course he didn't remember. He had dementia. And then he goes, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Oh, I'm from Texas." He goes, "I know where you're from. You were brought here on a rope and chain." And I didn't know what to say. And I was just like, "Actually, no, I'm from Texas. I'm from Texas, and at the time my supervisor wasn't in the room. And so when she came in the room, she was like, "How's it going?" She's like, and I was like, "Well, apparently I was brought here on a rope and chain." And she was just like, "Seriously, Lauren, he said that to you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I like excused myself. But those are the kind of things that I dealt with in grad school, just dealing with the patients that I were. I know you can't even believe this right now, but that's very.
And I think it's a tidbit because I don't know if we've ever had this conversation, but growing up in Florida, I didn't experience any of those things.
And I honestly say the same thing about myself. Like I never really experienced those things, at least living in like a metropolitan Texas like suburb. But when I moved to Alabama, and then like where I was, like where I attended school was fine. But then the moment you leave those city bounds, like the people, and then he had dementia, so he was just going back to his roots, and and then I had other instances, like I think I just kind of my brain just like poofed it out. But that one sticks with me because people just can't believe that. And then honestly, just grad school in itself, is for speech at least, it's just so tedious and time consuming. Like I would leave my house at 6, sometimes 5:30 in the morning, and we would go to our practicum. So that probably included me driving an hour north to Tennessee to go to the nursing facility. And then we had class at night. So we would be at the nursing facility from 8 a.m. to maybe 5, drive to campus. We had class from 6:30 to 10. And then it's like, when do you have time to socialize? And then you have to study, and then it's just go. So a lot of times I think like, wow, I don't know how I made it through that. And then, because you have to accrue hours and stuff.
Well, I think about, because, you have to do the same thing for counseling, as far as practicum hours.
Yeah.
But let me ask this, because something that you said earlier kind of caught my eye. You said you didn't know that the speech program had so much that it entailed. Well, what do you mean by that?
So it's a lot of math and science, a lot. Yeah. So like statistics, because when we're testing kids, we're a lot of times looking at standardized norms, and we're looking at graphs. So you have to look at it like how to standardize and how do they compare to other kids, which, sometimes a lot of the kids I see, like the things I see are kind of anecdotal, but in order for things to be paid for insurance, you have to verify or prove that they're either improving in their skill or function, or if they aren't, then do the scores match this and why? And so there's a lot of math and science involved. Like speech and hearing science was the hardest class I've ever taken in my entire life. I could cry about it right now. Because like he wasn't even a speech pathologist, but he was like, I don't even know what his actual title was, but he was a scientist. And he would tell us that if we ever worked in a school setting as a speech therapist, that we would have to measure the acoustics of a room because that impacts the speech production. And so he would tell us like to measure a rug and measure curtains and then do all these math equations. And I don't really care for math. I care for English.
Right. Me too.
And so, like I didn't know that. And then just getting into grad school in itself for speech, like it's just our governing board, they make it super difficult. You have to have, I think for every grad student, you have to have a professor, right? And so that's why these grad programs are so small. And so a lot of times they only will accept 20 to 25 students at a time. But then you have these undergrad programs that are pushing out thousands of students. And so like even from my undergraduate studies, I'm the only one of my friend group, maybe there was 5 or 6 of us that's a speech pathologist. Everyone else had to pick other paths in career. So they either were like a teacher or a real estate agent, something like they had to just leave the field completely. They couldn't get into grad school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that I did not.
Yeah,
know.
it's really crazy. It's really sad. Like
it's really sad, but then it makes me feel really blessed that you made it.
Yeah,
through, and I got you.
And I mean, there's a shortage of us, and it's not at our like doing. But so then you get into grad school, and then you have these adversities that come your way, right? And then so you're in this graduate program. If you already have a degree in speech or communication disorders, and it should be only a 2-year program, but because it's so hard to get into school and there's not that many schools that offer speech, then you have to leave the state. So that's what I did. So I moved to Alabama for 2 years. And then while you're in school, you're doing your practicum hours. You have 500 or I can't remember now, maybe 400 hours. I think I had 500 because I'm just overachiever. And then you also have to take your praxis, which is like your credentialing test. And then after that, you have your degree, you've done all these hours, you now have 2 degrees actually. You have 400, 500 hours, you've taken your test, and then you have to find a job, and then you still have to be supervised. You have a fellowship year for 9 years. 9 months. So like on the time, so when I first started working with Colin, I would have been still under my clinical fellowship year where I was still supervised.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so like I didn't know all this going into speech. Oh, wow. But it's a lot. And then, grad school just weighs on you. Like I was gone, like I said, from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then when do you study? And these tests are not easy
at all.
And then I was away from home, so I was homesick and like maybe going through a breakup too. So it's a lot. Yeah. And you're not getting paid. Like you're working. I'll never forget, like when I was at these different nursing home placements, my nursing home supervisors were not the best. They saw it as, oh, we have these grad students coming to do our job. We can chill, bye. And they would be in the therapy gym, is what they call it, in the nursing home. And we would be seeing patients, trying to meet productivity, writing up. It felt like we were doing their jobs for them, and they weren't really training us. And so
that's crazy.
I, kind of like just thrown to the wolves. And so that's how I learned to be so, I guess, resilient, because it was a lot. Like I still don't know how I made it, but I made it.
You made it.
Yeah.
So guys, if you're just tuning in, we are speaking with Loren, who is my son's speech language pathologist and fam with me. Again, I will fight you about her. So listen, if you have an autistic child or a child with a disability, please put it in the comments. Hashtag, that's me, girl. Hashtag, it's my disability too. Or maybe you are an adult autistic person. Let me ask that question. Do you know many adult autistic people?
I do. So I would say this. So right now, the company that I work for, we see birth to 21, right? So I do have a couple of older kids that I do treat, and one of them is 20, so I wouldn't even call her a kid.
Right.
But like I went to her, I've been working with her on and off like 10 years. I went to her high school graduation. She just turned 20 a couple weeks ago, so she's an adult that I see that has autism. I would say I have some family members that are on the spectrum.
So let's talk about that for a second. Like, okay, so you have family members that are on the spectrum. What does it look? How does it look differently, right? When it's someone that you know personally in your family, like how do you deal with that?
I think so. I would bring in race into this, honestly, because I think sometimes Black families just either things just get pushed under the rug or they make light of things. And so I know, like in the person I'm thinking about in particular, we all just think he's just awkward and he's always in our business. And he's very smart. He's educated. He's a doctor. But he is just socially unaware. And so
give me an example.
Like Thanksgiving. I had Thanksgiving. I hosted it at my home. I have it set the way I want it set. I have my Bluetooth speaker playing the playlist that I created. He comes in with this boombox that he just bought from Big Lots. And he's like, Loren, what's the Wi-Fi code? I'm like, no, it's okay. And he's like, whoa, no, because I just bought the speaker and I want to show the lights and he's fixated on that. You can't really get him off of that. And he just doesn't pick up on like, okay, no, this was not the plan for the way we wanted today's events to go. And so he just like won't let it go. So then you're like, here's the Wi-Fi code. And then and then we're trying to pray and he's playing like Afro beats. And he's playing Afro beats because he recently started dating someone of that persuasion. Okay. And so then he became fixated with that. Right. Like we went to the rodeo a couple of years ago. Since then, he wears cowboy boots and Wrangler jeans everywhere. It doesn't matter where we go, everywhere. That's his new fixation. And so, yeah, it's just like little things like that. But yeah, and it manifests in different ways. Like I have another family member. When she was younger, she had a lot of sensory aversion. So by that, she didn't like things touching her, or she just would kind of freak out. And then she would cover her ears because like it was too much sensory input. And then, of course, we found out later she was diagnosed with autism.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let me ask this question. So we're talking about family dynamics, right? So when you have a child that's diagnosed, right, and you're breaking the news to the parents, right, or if you don't, someone else has, right? Yeah. What is the first thing that you would suggest to the family?
Yeah. I work in home health, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time I tread cautiously. As a speech pathologist, I can diagnose, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I don't always want. I think the best approach is an interdisciplinary approach where you have the psychologist, maybe the teacher, the doctor, the speech pathologist, everyone saying, okay, yeah, I see this, and this, they have autism. And so if I have a parent, if I go into an eval and it's clear as day the kid has autism, then I may say something. I'll say they exhibit these characteristics. Let me show you this test, and like this is what this looks like. But sometimes people are not always receptive, and I'm not always sure if I want to be the first one to break that news to them, quite honestly. And sometimes I may go into an eval because a lot of the characteristics of autism may coincide with like ADHD or apraxia of speech, which is a speech motor disorder. And so I don't want to be the one to say, oh yeah, they have autism, when they probably don't. And so unless I'm clear, because a lot of times my evals are only 30 minutes, so I don't want to tell you that if I don't know for sure, obviously. But then there's sometimes I go in, I'm like, whoa, like this kid is like bouncing off the walls. They're flailing their arms. They're doing. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's talk about this. And then I'll go into eval. I'm more receptive to having that conversation, at least at the first meeting, if they ask me. So if they say, hey, do you think they have autism? Then I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that, because yes, I think they do.
So we've gotten them diagnosed. We know that they have autism. Then what's your advice?
Oh my gosh. So my advice would be early intervention. That's what you need to do. Like if you have any suspicions now that your kid is on the spectrum, you should be seeking counsel. So that means going to their pediatrician, maybe even reaching out to a speech pathologist, and then they'll route you in which way to go. But 100% early intervention, you do not want to wait, especially if they have aversive behaviors like hitting, biting,
spitting.
Yeah, like I have an older kid right now that I'm seeing, and honestly, his parents waited until he was a teenager. And I'm fighting for my life every time I go to see that kid. I mean, it is intense. And I mean like full on attacking me and his mom. So yeah, you want to try to get those behaviors under control now. Like with Colin, like
baby, let me tell you. Now, Colin is nut when you buck every blue moon, but Mama also nuts when she bucks, right?
Like, what did he do to me the other day? I was sitting there and I was like pretending to cry because he hurt my
hand or something.
Yeah, and he was just bought me in my head. And I just really, Colin, this is what we're doing. But he knew in that moment that, like, one thing about Colin, he knows when he's wrong. And so, but that started young.
Sorry.
Like, sorry.
Sorry, Lauren. Or sorry, Mommy.
Yeah, he's like, don't cry. I'm like, I'm not crying, but you know that was wrong.
Well, what I can definitely say is my kid is a good kid.
Yeah.
He really is a sensitive kid too, and he realizes when he hurts people's feelings or does something wrong. But what kills me is like and I probably shouldn't teach him this right now, but I'm teaching him how to play fight.
Yeah, that's probably not the best.
But the thing for me is he was already doing it, right? And so I wanted to teach him how to play fight so that he knows the difference.
I think he likes that sensory feedback. So even when he was younger, like when he was just having his meltdowns, honestly, I would do what I would call like deep pressure massages. And that's just really to give him some sort of sensory feedback. So I'm like squeezing his arms and like smashing his hands. Yeah. So I ask him, Colin, do you need to squeeze my hand? And then sometimes he'll say, yes. I'm like, okay, squeeze my hand.
Right. Or he'll need a hug. You can ask him if he needs a hug.
And I love hugging him. I'm like, Colin, do you need a hug? Yes. Yeah, he really is sweet. But it's not always like that.
Oh.
And like, I have a sweet baby right now. We worked with him for like 3 years. But I think when he started school, he picked up on some behaviors. And one day he just yanked me by my hair. And I'm not gonna lie, his parents came in the room, they handled it. But I was like, I was so confused. And so like he has kind of learned, okay, if I don't get my way, I can just yeet like your ponytail and it hurts. And so, yeah.
Have you run across parents that didn't handle it though?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And all I can do is tell them, look, if they are 3 and 4 and doing this now, you are in for your money. Like you're
Right.
going, kids with autism, they need structure,
Yes.
they need routine, and they need boundaries. You have to
say it
give
again for
them
people in the back.
that.
Hello.
They need structure, routine, and boundaries, and they thrive off of that. And so if they seek or if they sense any sort of weakness in you, they will take that and run with it. And so it doesn't mean you have to like, because I'm stern with my kids, but they know I love them.
Right.
And so if they sense that they can just do whatever they will, and they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Positively. So like the thing in my household is I'm only going to punish you for things that you know better.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can punish you for things that are actually a part of your autism that, you just don't know. And I got to teach you that. Right.
Yeah.
But like, so for instance, I don't whoop Colin. I've never been the type of parent to whoop him because I feel like he doesn't always understand what that's for. Like, why am I getting hit? Like, no. No. But if I threaten Colin with a whooping, then Colin will be, sorry, mommy. Like, and
And I mean, sometimes Colin, like, he gets upset. He kind of fixates on the negative, right? So if you tell him no, then even though you said yes to 1,000 things,
never do it.
Don't, like, I have to be really, like, sometimes Candy will be like, she can see me processing because I'm trying to think about how I can say this without using any form of like negation. And it's because the moment he hears no or nothing or it's gone or he fixates on that. And so you have to be really careful.
He loves to go to the clubhouse after I finish working. The clubhouse is our little gym that's in the apartments. And if I say, no, mommy's tired, we'll go tomorrow, we'll never go to the clubhouse.
Yeah, he's like, the clubhouse is broken. and then you're just sitting there and you're like, oh no. And then it's like once he starts, it may take a minute to get him off of that, which is why that's what we're working on right now. Like I'm just like, Colin, this doesn't mean never. This means like, because time concepts is a thing. They don't understand time. Right. And so, or at least Colin doesn't. And so he just thinks, oh, I can't go right now. That means I'll never get to go. And he's really heartbroken. Like, and then it just kind of escalates from there.
Yeah, because I love the fact that I've learned with the teaching at the school and teaching at home, like he's learned Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, for sure.
So now, because he goes, his father and I are not together, so he goes to his grandmother's house, and I have to literally say, because he'll say, "Oh, we're going to Gigi's house today." Today's Wednesday. When do we go to Gigi's house? On Friday.
Yeah, and it was a couple weeks ago. I guess he like maybe thought it was Friday.
Yep.
And so I showed up. He just opens the door. He's like, oh. And he's like, what did he say? He said, it's not Friday. And I was like, you're right. It's Thursday. Come on, let's go. Like, he was so heartbroken. I think he thought he was going to the Gigi's house. Yeah.
I died.
I was like, well, hello to you too. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, just those social greetings and stuff. I work on that a lot with the kids. So, like, Colin knows. I'm like, when you see me, if you open the door for me, you need to say hello. So he'll just look at me and he's like, and he'll just turn away. And I'll say, Colin, what do you have to say? Hi, Lauren. But like, that's after I've been working with him for years. But
he's still getting in the car after school. Tablet, please. Hi, Colin.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Oh, hi, mommy. Yeah. Tablet, please. Okay, all right.
But he's come such a long way.
He's come such a long way. Sure. Do you ever run into kids that don't? Like you've been seeing them for a while and they haven't come a long way?
Yeah, and I always tell parents like it's not an overnight thing, and really our main focus is for them if they already have some sort of skills that we're trying to retain what they do have. So, and I have kids that are autistic that are nonverbal or they use a communication device to speak. And like I'm dealing with the insurance thing right now where this kid, we got him a trial device. He's thriving with it. Like he doesn't verbally communicate, but he will imitate some sounds for me and only me. But he doesn't say words. But he's brilliant. And he's able to create sentences on his tablet, on his AAC is what we call it. And then insurance denied him a device. What? And so we're fighting because they said it wasn't medically necessary. And so I've already written like an appeal and now it's going on like 8 months of us fighting.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's really sad because then it's just like, okay, we're trying here.
Yeah.
cut us some slack. So yeah, I have some kids that are nonverbal, and I have kids that maybe are nonverbal, but their receptive knowledge, which is like what they know, they're like almost off the charts. They just don't talk.
Right.
And then I have kids that probably coincides with an intellectual disability as well. So yeah.
I mean, I'm really grateful that Colin's IQ was definitely up there. It's just some of the comprehension.
Yeah, let me just say this. Colin taught himself how to read. He was probably 4.
Mommy was working with him at 1 and 2.
Yeah,
Colin really could read by like 4 for real.
Yeah. Because he was reading by the time he started school.
Absolutely, and that boy was saying words like catastrophe, and what was that other one he used to say? And I cannot think but he used to call it something. Oh, I can't think right now. It'll come back to me. But like, and when I put him in school, they were like, he knows these words are. First of all, I'm a former teacher, so she don't play that. She gonna work at home. But with you and me working with him at home, like,
and I think people. So when Colin started school, so Colin is verbal, but he's not gonna sit down and have a back and forth conversation with you. It's gonna be 1 to 2 words, like when he wants to.
Right. For sure. And he can definitely have a dialogue.
Yeah. And so, like, I think when he started school, he wasn't really talking, and they didn't know
he didn't want to,
that he could. Yeah, he didn't. They didn't know he could. So when they heard him reading, they were like, "You know, he can read."
Yeah.
Duh.
Because the teacher was like, "Yeah, did you know he could read?" And I was like, did I not tell you that I'm a former English teacher, and I made sure he had books at home, and he has a speech language pathologist at home too? And they were like,
and not only can Colin read, but Colin, he likes other languages. So,
oh my God, I have to figure out which language he's speaking today.
It is something else. Like, we were going back and forth the other day because
the
words were, so it was like it was a simple book, but it was like 100 first words. But I was just trying to get him to. I was giving him a description, and he had to match what I was describing. But he was fixated on wanting to read the words on the page in Spanish. Right. So I'm like, Colin, I understand. And so he's really quirky, and he's got a sense of humor. So he knows when he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So he's like, elefante. And I'm like, Colin, that's not the word I'm describing. Please stop.
It's a gato.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then he's like, he just keeps going because he knows it's funny. Yeah.
I love my kid, but that boy knows French, Dutch. I've listened to him watch things in Arabic,
and he'll try to imitate. And I know sometimes I talk in a sing-songy voice, and he really shows a lot about me than myself, because I'll say something that he'll imitate me. I'm like, oh, I did just say that way. Why did I do that?
And when did you start? You started something the other day, and I was like, well, you started it.
I don't even know.
You started it.
It doesn't matter what. Like, he started singing Pink Panther. Pink Panther beat in the
that's
middle
what
of
he's fixated.
Yeah, he's definitely fixated on Pink Panther. Yeah, and I think he heard like the first 2 notes randomly, like on my iPad, like a keyboard, and then he just kept. And I was like, "Is that Pink Panther?" Yes. We were both like, "What is he?" He started watching Pink Panther. Okay,
I don't even know
he
how
makes these
sounded.
Crazy associations.
Yeah, and then I'll catch him watching Ridiculousness. Like what?
Oh, I could see him liking that. He probably likes the people falling off and getting hurt and stuff.
And he'll be sitting there laughing,
cracking up. Yeah,
dude, what? Okay, anyway. So now I know we're sitting here laughing and talking, but it's not always easy, right? Being an autistic mom, first of all, because I don't know if you remember, like, I don't know, was he like maybe 4 or 5, and Colin still wasn't potty trained, right? So I remember, I don't panic in situations, right? But I remember this as clear as day. I was on the phone and I was doing some work in the bed, in the dining area, and Colin was in my room, and all I smelled was boo boo. I was like, oh man, please hold. And I walked in, and Colin literally had smeared it all over my bed, the bottom of the, and I was like, okay, all
Yeah.
right, what am I doing right now? And he was fixated on it because it was the feel of it, right?
Yep.
And he's just smushing it. And I was
Yep.
like,
Yep.
but and I'm in autism groups on Facebook and where
a lot of parents are saying,
yeah,
yeah.
and they experienced this. Have any other crazy stories that your parents have told you about stuff like that?
Yeah. One time I walked, this was years ago. So actually before I got into grad school, I worked as a speech language assistant. So that means I only had my bachelor's degree, and then I went and got a license, but I wasn't fully credentialed yet. So I had a supervisor or whatever, but I showed up at a house, and this she was older. She probably was like 17, but she was nonverbal, severely intellectually disabled, and her parents she liked to play in her poop, and so it would always be right before I showed up. And then they would be outside trying to like hose her off, and I'm like, and I was overstimulated at that point because I'm like, I can't do therapy, and she has like poop on her fingernails,
and you
like,
know how long that takes to like get out of their
I'm like,
hands?
and then I have to go to someone else's house, like, no.
Yeah. No.
And so I'm like, y'all need to be watching her more close. I mean, it was happening twice a week, so it was a thing. But I actually have kids. A lot of the kids right now, I mean, that is very common. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes they don't like the feel of the poop, and so they won't poop in the toilet. They'll poop in their pamper. So I have a lot of kids, or I have in the last few years, that they've been potty trained to pee in the toilet, but then they refuse to poop in the toilet, and that has been a thing. So like sometimes I will work on that in therapy with like visual schedules and stuff of that nature. But I tell the parent, I'm like, we're going to have to work together. And I'm not going to be the one, I'm not spending my therapy time in the restroom with y'all.
Right.
Like this has to be done when I'm not here. So
I think my hiccup with it was I was doing it at home on my side because I am divorced, right? And I was doing it at home on my side of things, and then he would go to school and they were helping me at school, but at his other parents' house it was just like
no, there's definitely there has to be a full coordination of care. Like I don't know if I've ever spoken to Colin's teachers or therapists, but sometimes they will reach out to me, or I'll be a part of their meetings at school, and it's coordination of care. Like, how can we all get on the same page for the betterment of the child?
Yeah, so. And it's a difficult situation at times, you know. So and especially when they think that they know better than a professional, because and if y'all don't know, I'm a former teacher, right? So I've dealt with all kinds of disabilities in the school system, and so that actually prepared me for my kid, you know. I knew when he was 2 that I was like, something off about you, little boy. I think he might be autistic. And the water thing really got me, and him walking on his tippy toes and those type of things. I was like, I need to get you tested. And his father actually fought against me. So like, I don't know if anybody else is going through those type of things, but holler at me if you want a perspective on it.
And a diagnosis doesn't condemn them at all.
Right.
Like, I mean, especially if they're on the higher functioning side. Like I said, I have a family member that's a doctor. Like, you can still be very much successful, but you want to get them in these interventions early so that they have the most rehab potential.
Right. Absolutely. So let me ask this question, Lauren. Do you want kids?
Of course I want kids. Oh my God. Yeah, we talk about this all the time. I can't wait. I love kids so much. I used to want like a really big family.
And so I maybe with the camera view, you might not have been able to see it, guys. But my girl is getting married. Yes. I was so excited when she told me, guys.
Yeah.
Because this is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And I am ecstatic, right? So do you ever get concerned about possibly having a child on the spectrum or any other disability?
It's so funny you asked that, because when I was younger, like high school, college, I used to say, I feel like the Lord is going to bless me with a kid that is disabled because I would be the best fit. And so, you know, of course you would want your kid to be like typically developing and functioning. But if that happened, then I'll be a great fit. So
how does your fiance feel about that? Have y'all had that good discussion?
No, but I think we would definitely need to go to some classes. Because I mean, it's just like, man, they just don't know a lot of things. Like, I'll say something, he's like, "Oh, I never knew that," and I'm like, "How did you never know that?" So, yeah, like certainly if I had a kid, or there's the concern, I guess, with me having a stutter that. So apparently, like the stats, or at least when I was in school, the stats were that if you're a woman that stutters, you're more likely to have a child that stutters, especially a male son. So I do wonder if I'm going to have a kid that stutters. And so I'm just like, okay, well, this will be interesting. So yeah, well, I guess we'll only see.
So how did your parents deal with, you having a stutter? Like, did they immediately get you into some type of services, or?
Yes and no. So when I started public school in kindergarten, and they thought I was just having trouble with like my pre-reading skill, like linguistic skills. And so they had me go to a reading specialist. And the reading specialist was like, she can read. I think she needs to see the speech pathologist. And so then they ended up testing me. And it's really interesting, like, well, now knowing what I know that most times when a kid starts stuttering, it's developmental. It's as their increase of language and the input is coming in. It's just like too much to process. And so it's developmental in nature, but you're also, or they said at the time when I was in school that you're not supposed to like make the kid aware that they're stuttering. You're just supposed to kind of ignore it, or don't say, "Hey, slow down." Like, you're not supposed to do that, because then that brings that awareness on and that additional anxiety, and then they notice it. And so I would say maybe my family did it the way it shouldn't have been done, and so maybe that's why my stutter is stuck. And so so then I was in speech, and I remember like vividly, I did not do presentations in front of the class. I usually was able to get out of it, but every once in a while I did have to do it. And it was definitely hard on me as a kid, because like popcorn reading, for instance, everyone freaks out about popcorn reading, but me, I'd be sitting there like trying to pace my breath, genuinely having a panic attack because I knew I was about to stutter. Kids are gonna laugh. So that was really hard. My mom was pretty understanding. However, my dad, who actually has a stutter, but not diagnosed, but he has a stutter because I've diagnosed him. He would be the one that was very impatient. It would be like, just get it out. Or like, what do you have to say? And that would bring on more communicative pressure, which causes more stuttering episodes. Now that I know this now. But as a kid, I'm just like, okay, you're pressuring me to talk and I can't talk. So my stutter there's like different types of stuttering, but I have what's called blocking. So if I were talking and it just sounds, and it looks or seems as if there's just this silence of air, it's because the word just won't come out. I don't have the hesitations or the repetitions that people associate with stuttering, but I have what's called blocking. So sometimes if I'm reading something, that's when the blocking really manifests. It's gotten way better as I become an adult, but when I was younger, yeah, for sure.
So how did is your dad better about that kind of
my
stuff
dad well, yes, because I don't really, I think a lot of people don't believe that I have a stutter, because I'm able to I just know the techniques to get out of my stutter. And so I don't think my dad even recognizes it anymore. Okay. For sure. Or like, even when I told my fiance when we first started dating, he's like, "No, you don't." I'm like, why would I lie about that? So a lot of people don't pick up on it because they just don't know what my type of stuttering sounds like. And I know how to mask it. I just know how to get out of it to make it seem like something else, but I'm really in a stuttering episode, or I know one is about to come on. It's so weird. It's really fascinating. So,
and does your fiance know that you used to stutter?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we actually talked about it this morning, because he was like, "Yeah, now that you mention it, I hear it sometimes." And I'm like, "Yeah,
but is he a little quirky too?" I always think that people that are quirky get with quirky people.
He's a little quirky. He's a little quirky. Yeah. Oh no, like if he were here right now, he'd be shaking his head like, "Really, Lauren?" Yeah. I tell him all the time. I'm like, that was really interesting that you just did that. I was like, I have kids that do that too.
So, this is also a relationship show. So let me ask you a few questions. Right. What was this journey like to being a fiance?
Long.
You were a lady in waiting.
Yeah, not with him per se. Like once we decided to date and be exclusive and all that, it was easy. Mm-hmm. Like, and then that just made me realize, like, wow, this was so easy. Why weren't? Well, obviously we know why those didn't work out, but yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I was maybe going through a breakup in grad school. Mm-hmm. So that was actually towards the end of my graduate schooling, but that was even harder because then I had to study for my exam, and that was really hard on me. And then I moved back, and then I thought I was just gonna casually date, and I did. But
what is casually dating to you?
Okay, at the time, so this was like 2019. Casually dating at the time for me meant I wasn't going to. I guess you could say I was celibate, but I also wasn't I wasn't stern in that, but I was just like meeting people online, and the guys that I was communicating with. Then once they caught feelings, and then they were like, "Okay, what are we doing?" I'm like, "Whoa, hold up." And so, and then I realized, but it was because I knew I wasn't ready yet to date. Everything was still fresh. I was with my ex for a while, and so then I kept dating online. And I mean, Candy knows I have horror stories. Like I wish I could write a book, but I don't want to bring up that trauma. But
you should actually.
Yeah, like
knowing what I know.
Yeah. So actually my fiance now, like we met online. We go back and forth. We don't know if it was 2019 or 2020. All I know was we ended up being friends on Instagram, but we never met in person. We just decided to be friends on Instagram. And then every once in a while, he'd be like, "Hey, Lauren," he would DM me. And I'm like, "Wait, what's this guy? What? He keeps bothering me." And so, because I was still dating other guys. And then he ended up like moving to Florida. And then he was coming back into town. And he was like, "Hey, let's go on a date." And I had just gotten out of this crazy, it was 2 crazy short stints of dating back to back. But after that, I was like, something's got to give. Like, it was terrible. I'm not going to say the first person I dated because I don't want to jeopardize anything he's got going on. But he was crazy. He had some mommy issues. And the second one was an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And it all like unraveled all at one time. And I was like, okay, that bottle of vodka was like full when I was here last night. And now it's gone. And then I was just like, everything just started like coming together, and it was crazy. And so I had to get out of that. And thank goodness that was super short. And then after that, I couldn't believe it, because once somebody like that puts you through the like mental agony and like abuse, honestly, right. I would call it, I was done for. So anyway, my fiance reached out to me. It was like perfect timing. I was like, "You caught me right in the nick of time." And then
intervention.
And then we've been good since. And so, I mean, he made it very clear, like when we started dating exclusively, what he wanted. So here we are.
To the point I was like, okay.
Yeah, she was like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "I think it was so funny because my fiance, bless his heart, but he was so excited to propose to me, and I told her, I was like, "I'm gonna know when you're gonna propose," because, like I said, he's a little
and did,
yeah. And I knew, and I told Kenny I was going on a trip out of the country, and it was supposed to be his birthday trip. I was like, "Kenny, it's gonna happen." Wow, I'm aware. And of course it did. So
I was so happy when I got that text message. I was like, "She's getting married."
Yeah. So it's been super easy with him, and so like that's what I always say. You know, it should never be hard. It shouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
And you may have little hiccups, but yeah. Mm-hmm. But oof.
Absolutely. But y'all know my motto: premarital counseling.
Of course.
Premarital counseling. Premarital counseling. Oh, okay. And also my thing is, and of course, I'm going to always plug the business. There is a class coming up March 25th 3rd for 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. It is a workshop. It's meant to be a 2-day workshop. I've condensed it down. They're different formats or whatever, but I've condensed it down to 6 hours. And you get lunch and all of that. Go on the website and look at it. But you're teaching the foundations of things. It's like fondness and admiration of your significant other. It's how to build a trust and commitment, how to manage conflict, how to get out of these perpetual and solvable problems, and not be demise of your relationship, So if you have not gone to premarital counseling, I swear to God it's definitely a great program to go through. And it's based upon the book 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. So and what I think I've already shared to you that I am gifting you and Dylan that book. Okay, okay.
Yeah, no, we're actually looking forward to it. I told him about it. I was like, we're ready.
Because, honestly, it's a tremendous help. Every person that I've taken through, whether it's in individual counseling or actually in the course, they're like, oh, I don't think we would have known any of this.
Yeah.
And especially us. I'll be quite honest, because we don't get the tools before.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily our parents' fault either, because a lot of people weren't taught that by the generation before that either. And we were taught to sweep things under the rug. Mm-hmm. And you'll just just stay married for 40 and 50 years and go through misery and suffer. Right. Oh, okay, yeah. That's how to do it. So no. Or be cheated on for the whole time just stay, right? Mm-hmm. But as we begin to wrap these things up, Loren, what would you say to anybody, like a last bit of tidbit for anybody that needs services, right? Mm-hmm. What would be your best advice about them finding out about their child being on the spectrum of anything, or just even in general, just like once you get a speech, who was a good one? What signs should they recognize of a person that didn't know what they're doing as a speech language pathologist?
I would say if you have concerns about your child's development, if that means they're not meeting their milestones, even so, like a lot of people don't know that one of the big things of autism is they have these sensory anomalies. So that includes being a picky eater. Mm-hmm. So Lord. So yeah, all about that, Candy. but so sometimes I have kids that are fearful of food. And they're on the spectrum. Like they do not eat. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a kid, they're not eating, they have these extreme emotional responses to things. Mm-hmm. They maybe aren't where they need to be speech and language wise, then you need to seek out counsel. So I always say your pediatrician, right? Start there. But if you are not being heard, you need to be, you as the parent,
right.
And so you need to advocate for your kid. If things are not right, if they're 2 years old and they're not saying any words, they're either disabled or delayed, right? They're not where they need to be at that time. And so,
and the biggest thing to me is don't think it stigmatizes them or labels them or anything, because I actually wanted Colin to get his label autism on the spectrum of autism. Why? Because that gives him resources.
It does.
Right?
It does.
Yeah. And that gives him the help that he needs.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like the parents I see, they're scared of that label. Mm-hmm. But I also say, like, once you get that label, especially if it's autism, then you can't say 5 years from now, oh, they've been then they never had autism. They were just delayed or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you want to be sure, right? But also, if your kid is not speaking, especially by 2, or if you notice at 12 months, 18 months, they're not babbling, they're not cooing, they're not looking at you in the eye. If you're saying, hey, look over there, and they're not following your tracking, your eye, those are early indicators. And so you want to be able to look at these milestones and say, no, don't follow them to a T, but surely if your kid is 2 and not talking, that is a sign. Well, Colin not a sign that they have autism, but a sign that they are behind.
Yeah, because Colin used to say, digga, 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 digga,
digga, digga, digga. And so people, I'm so glad you brought that up. People will say, I'll go into an eval and I'll say, is your kid babbling? And then they'll make that sound. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, But that's not actually babbling. Those are sensory perseverations. They're just doing like babbling is like, well, there's different types, but what I'm looking for is like reduplicated babbling, like ba 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 ba, or like if I say mama, and then your kid says mama, you're doing reciprocal interactions.
Right.
But that right there is also like if I go into an eval and they're like, yeah, my kid, and I'm like, they're bouncing off the walls and they're and I'm like, okay.
It would be my favorite. Like, it's my favorite thing, but I also knew, you know, it was like, you just walk around talking about a digga, 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 digga. I was like, yeah, what's wrong with my kid? It was cute, but what's wrong with you, right? You know, we're calling sings right now and everything. He makes up a song. And I mean, he get it honestly.
But
and
so I'm so glad you brought that up too. Like, all of us have a little bit of indicators of neurodivergence. Like, we really do. But if, let's say there's 100 indicators and you have 50, okay, right, you're probably neurodivergent, right? And so, like me, I know I have some indicators, but I wouldn't deem myself as being autistic. Maybe some other things, but like you said, like we all have, like you may be a picky eater, but just because you're a picky eater doesn't mean that you have autism.
Right, that part.
So it's like if you have multiple indicators, and that puts you more likely on the spectrum.
Right.
And then it's a spectrum, so you have mild and moderate and severe and all that.
Right. Oh my goodness. We could go on and on, but it's definitely an hour of your time. And I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that this has been informative for you. Lauren is definitely on Facebook. You'll have to search her if she wants, if she wants to have your information. But definitely, guys, you know that you can come back all month long. I am talking about the things that are near and dear to my heart. Miss Roxanne, oh my God, I just went blank on her last name. But anyways, she will be coming on because she was Colin's teacher. So I want to get the different perspective, as well as she is now an autism mom. So it's a little bit different when you're the speech language pathologist and you deal with kids all day, and then you are the teacher that dealing with, and you also have an autistic child. Ooh, we got some stories for you guys. So that's coming up this month as well. So listen, I am so excited that you guys stayed with us. If you are catching the replay, definitely do #replay. What I need you to do though is ring that bell so that you can come back for notifications about mental health, about sex education, about marriage, family dynamics, all of those different things that you know that I put on this podcast or on my lives. Guys, listen, I am wishing you love-filled days and orgasmic nights. Have a wonderful day. Bye.